The Buddhic Self is the term of bodhisattva, and the being who was embodiment, the best known embodiment of bodhisattva, is the Quan Yin. She is known in Asia as the, many call it, goddess of love and compassion, and very highly esteemed being in China and Thailand and other Eastern countries. She is one of the key deities, just like Jesus in the West, in the Christian tradition. The bodhisattva, in its true embodied form, is a highly advanced being, such as Quan Yin, who has renounced leaving the earth, who has renounced final liberation and stayed to help every living soul to come out of suffering, to assist every living soul as a way to liberation. In the West, in the Christian tradition, it was Jesus, the Christ. Thus, he was known as the Son of God. In the West, Jesus was the shining example of the Christ. We may say from this perspective, Quan Yin was the shining example of the daughter of God. And Jesus was the shining example of the Son of God. The communion with God is so close that God is in the heart of the Christ, in the heart of the Bodhisattva. Buddha is in the heart of the Bodhisattva. And the Christ or Buddhic Self attains the powers of omnipresence, omnisentience, and omnipotence. It is also called a cosmic consciousness, whereby there is a sense of being completely at one with every atom of the whole creation in its highest terms. And feeling and witnessing the whole creation emanating from this source or from the heart of the Christ. The heart of the Christ is piercing love. It is so strong and so deep, this love of the Christ, that it pierces through all the veils, all illusions. And usually it's felt so powerfully that, on the other hand, there is a certain disillusion or a certain, in one way we may say, death of the old. So if the activation is very strong, it can be felt as an extremely strong shift in one's experience, reality, one's consciousness. It's a piercing love. In the yogic traditions, it is known as cosmic consciousness, and it is known as Savikalpa Samadhi, where a yogi merges his consciousness into the Brahman, and thus, in that state of Samadhi, experiences the unity with the Brahman, the oneness with the Brahman, or immersion into the Brahman. So it can come as as a Savikalpa Samadhi experience. There are various degrees to Savikalpa Samadhi, and this would be the highest degree of Savikalpa Samadhi. There are other lower degrees of Samadhi which a person can experience already at inner love, unity states of consciousness, and those are more like luminosity of the mind. While the Christ self or Savikalpa, the highest degree of it is really an immersion into the Brahman. So it's a also very strong experience. However, it is not so sustainable. So then a person returns from the Savikalpa Samadhi and continues on his or her journey forward. So at this stage, a person can experience truly universal love, compassion, and mercy for all the souls in the universe, for all the beings of the universe. Because the Christ itself is the very first form that is manifested, we may say, as the soul manifests the very first form as a Christed Buddhic Self in this universe, in the Parabrahmanda universe. So from the divine eternity coming through the void, and then here is the universe. And this is the very first perfect form that the soul manifests to start experiencing this universe. The Christ itself is a blueprint of total perfection. The bodhisattva in the Buddhist tradition is a perfected being in this universe who is the way to the Buddha and who can liberate or save other souls. So the same way Jesus has declared or spoken out that he is the way, the Christ is the way to God. And he was right, he was true, because that is the liberated, the form of perfection through which you then go higher up to God. So essentially, Christ itself is being a son or daughter of God, where God is felt right here, right now. The presence of God or divine is felt very strongly here and now. It is already a certain degree of self-realization, a certain degree already of enlightenment, the first enlightenment, the first stage of enlightenment, which is also correlated to the awareness awakening, because the Christ self is fully aware and in the highest embodiment form, it is the perfect form, the perfect vehicle for awareness to be focused in this universe. For those familiar with the Ascension teachings, you have heard and you know about the mighty I am presence in the discourses of Saint Germain. So the mighty I am presence is already a perfect form as an individuated God form. However, it has many qualities. The mighty I am presence, as it is said, is an electronic light body. And the Christ itself is the next step up, next level up, which is even lighter in its vibration, it's lighter in its qualities, and it's equally perfect though. If the I am presence is truly in its total perfect form, then the perfection is equally there, but the Christ itself is lighter or less defined than the mighty I am presence. So many times when working with people, there comes this deep heart experience of a very deep heart and a piercing love, that it is so deep and so beautiful, but so strong and piercing that it just like cuts through everything. And then usually the suffering is brought forward to be healed right away. So that's one way of experience. Some people experience it as an ego death, as a certain releasing effect. Some people experience as a very strong rebirth experience. Some people realize the presence of the Christ and they feel that sonship or daughtership of God very strongly. So these are the key aspects of the Christ consciousness, which is cosmic in its nature, and it is complete oneness with everything. It is also synonymous to the universal consciousness, where the individual soul is completely at one with the universal consciousness, with the whole universe, and he or she is when they say, a representative of the universe, being a universal ambassador. In the Ascension teachings, we learn how to align with the laws of the universe. We learn the way of virtue, the way of perfection, and the way of how the universe functions at different degrees, at different levels. It is already a non-dual state. In the Christ itself is already the perfected non-dual state. Those who take the Buddhist path would practice very strongly the virtues of Buddha or Buddhism to develop themselves to be bodhisattvas on the journey to be complete Buddhas.